People today have so much to be thankful for to this generation. And the generation here, you listen to Graham's story, and this is something where he says he's not a hero, he says he didn't do anything, but what a tremendous impact he's had, not only on, his life, but going in and actually, when you see this story, this allows the two ends to connect. Here is a person that is talking to my parents, that they literally would not have existed if this man and his hero friends didn't go in. And when you talk about the liberation of Dachau, it is something where this wasn't a giant battle. But if the American soldiers did not go in and take that camp, these people, like my father just mentioned, would have been killed.
To see where her, her relatives were from, where her great-grandmother was married, and so forth. So we took a trip, and we flew from Boston to Dublin, transferred in Dublin, and went Dublin to Warsaw, and checked into the hotel overnight in Dublin. I'm sorry, in Warsaw, and then the next day took a train to Krakow, which is probably what?
3 hours.
3-hour train ride from Warsaw to Poland, and then one of the main things we wanted to do was Auschwitz, was the concentration camp, and then she also, the focus of her trip was the lady Czestochowa. I'll have to help you with the spelling on that. I have no idea, but she's a Polish. It's kind of like the Polish equivalent of Lourdes in the Catholic Church. It's a site of miracles, and it's extreme. It's a holy spot for the Polish people. But anyway, we got to Krakow, and we took a train. We got to Warsaw, took a train to Krakow, and took an excursion from Krakow to Auschwitz. And Auschwitz, in and of itself, is incredible. I don't know if you've had any opportunity to do any research or look on it at all, but it was a town that Hitler came in and renamed in 1939. And he named it a German town. It had been a Polish name prior to that. Was it Oświęcim?
Yeah, Oświęcim or
Osceime or something like that. Anyway, he renamed it as a German town, but his intention was to carry out the purification from that point. And it opened in 1939, and between 1939 and 1945, they were responsible at Auschwitz for killing millions and millions of people. Not only the Jews, but the Russian prisoners of war, Polish citizens. It was just a horrendous place. And it was so busy that Hitler, they saw the need to expand it. And as a result of the expansion, they built, they called it Auschwitz II Birkenau. And it was 5 times the size of the original Auschwitz camp. We had an opportunity to go to Auschwitz II Birkenau as well, and it was just unbelievable. You see, if you go online, you'll see the tower. There was a brick structure which was the entrance to Birkenau, Auschwitz II, and going right under the tower were the railroad tracks. In the railroad, on the trains, in the railroad tracks were the people being transported in to Auschwitz, and they had crematoriums, they had gas chambers, and they had barracks. The barracks are still standing, and as well as one of the boxcars still standing. And they ask you, when you were there, how many cattle would you estimate could fit into a boxcar? and people were saying, 8 or 10 cows. And that was right, but they would fit 100 people into those things, which was just incredible. And they said when they come off the boxcars, there was a German soldier, German doctor, officer, who would be there and would separate families. The males to the right, females to the left with the kids, and all those people would be killed.
All the women would be killed.
Yeah.
The men had to work, but all the women and children would go across the tracks, and they would go to the gas chambers, and then die in the gas chambers.
But one of the greatest points is our guide was a young, I'm saying late 30s maybe, young woman, and her parents, her grandparents, maternal side were killed by the Russians, and her paternal grandparents were killed by the Germans. And she said that the families died right there.
What?
Good.
Oh, I'm sorry, I lost.
No, I said, when they said the families.
Well, you know what happened too, whenever they came off the boxcars, the Jews were all told to bring things for 3 days, because they were going to go someplace better, work, do something better. So they brought all their treasures, they brought all their clothes for at least 3 days. And then when they came off the boxcar, they told them that they had to leave them there. And so then the Germans took all their possessions, of course, and traded it all in for either money or gold or whatever, and so they got none of their possessions. As we went through Birkenau, it was just absolutely horrific to see how poorly, how terribly people were treated. It was just, there were some rooms you couldn't even stay in when you went through. You kind of walked in, there was a room full of hairs. They cut everybody's hair off. I mean, it was just horrendous.
Just one room, just with glasses and baby toys and baby shoes and crutches and prosthesis.
Yeah.
It was just disgusting.
Incredible. But as we went through, the purpose of the story to kind of get you to Brenny was we would talk to people as we were going through, and there was a young boy, actually Kyle's age, that would keep asking questions of the guide. And, as you kind of walk with the crowd, you say, what brought you here? And the husband said, well, I came because his wife had Polish heritage as well. So she wanted to come back and see the country because her dad was Polish but never came back, never wanted to come back because he was a prisoner in Dachau. And so when we had gone through Birkenau, we knew what they did with the young boys that were healthy and could work was that they made them work to take the bodies out of the gas chambers and take the bodies to the crematoriums. And so once the kids learned enough about the system, they too were killed because they knew too much, and the Nazis never wanted anything out that this is what was going on. So when Dachau, which was the other concentration camp, got liberated, her dad got out and was able to leave the country and never opted to come back. So once we knew that, we said, I have another part to the story, and that part of the story is that his father was part of the liberating force that got the people out of Dachau. So he was the first half-track in, according to his story, and the last half-track out. And his last remembrance at Dachau, he'll be able to tell you, was that there was a prisoner kicking a German in the butt as they were heading out of the camp. And so the husband asked us to relay that story to the wife, and then she proceeded to then say, on behalf of my dad, I want to thank your dad for letting my dad out. And the young boy was 10, and the parents waited till he was old enough to bring him. so that he would be able to understand and to see and process what actually went on. And he had questions as we went from building to building. This was a 6-hour
Yeah.
tour. So we went from the buildings where they initially brought them in and saw how they lived on and slept on hay and bale bags, to the final place that was the death barracks, where people slept in a bunk bed 9 across because they were so thin, they were dying, they were not fed. There was one room that was their wash basin, and the problem was there was no running water for a year. So the entire basin was there, but there was no running water.
The thing about it too is Dachau was the first concentration camp established by Hitler, and it was built in 1933. And this is obviously 6 years before the invasion of Poland. So
You know, it was awful. And I'm going out, I was the last one out because I was the first one in. And then what started this story is, I always remembered, as we were going out, there was a German soldier in a little short prisoner. And the little short guy was kicking a German soldier in the butt as we went by him. And I always remember, you know, whatever happened to that poor guy, because it was only backwards. You know, and that's what started it. And then I've been telling Mike and them that story, and when they said that they met these people from Texas and their father was there, that's what started the story.
And
she was actually happy to hear that somebody had extracted some measure of retribution for the maltreatment, you know. She said, I'm glad they did that at least, you know.
And how did you feel when you heard that this woman wanted to thank you for what you had done
Oh,
for her?
I couldn't believe it. I never thought any more about her. It was just,
These guys not only defended us, but they made the lives of the people that in whose country they fought better. And I think that's the message that you've got to convey. That it's on the 4th of July, it's everywhere. On that day in Auschwitz, I recognized the effect that our servicemen in all the wars, in all the branches, have had on the people in the countries in which they fought. And like I said, whether it was Vietnam, moving on from one village to the next, those people, they made life village by village better. These guys made life town by town as they progressed across, you know, Germany into France, wherever else they were, barracks and the cells and so forth. And we were aware that the camp had begun in 1939, and we were aware that the camp lasted until 1945. And we were an English-speaking group, obviously, and we had no idea where other people were from. You know, there were people from German, English-speaking people from other Europe. She was crying.
Yeah, I mean, she had tears in her eyes, and just couldn't believe that somehow we met each other there and were able to exchange words as far as a thank you for getting him free. But it was a very emotional moment. I actually have a picture of her. I was taking pictures as we walked along the memorial, where they have a plaque for every nation that had somebody that was involved in it. So I have her picture at one of them as she's kind of walking by, just trying to take all of this in. But truly, I mean, I didn't know someone, I did know someone that was there, but to have had either your father or someone, I can't imagine the amount of emotion that she was feeling, because it was so overwhelming and so haunting that, I mean, since then, probably every night or every other night, you just wake up thinking about it. It's like, oh my God, how could somebody have done this?
It was also what was particularly haunting was the original, we have a photograph of the original entrance to Auschwitz, where in German, what does it say? Work shall make you free. Work shall set you free, words to the effect. But as you take the tour, they talk about the what they did to the people. There was a priest who was Pope John Paul wound up canonizing him.
Yeah,
Maximilian Kolbe, who was a prisoner, died in cell number 11 at that place at Auschwitz. But what they would do is they would make an example if someone tried to escape. They would make an example of someone by picking at random 10 other prisoners and stopping them to death. You know, and you'd actually, you'd see they would randomly, just to keep control, take people out and force them to stand before a firing squad. And you'd actually look at the wall that they stood in front of with the bullet holes in the wall. It was like, incredible.